guys, how's it going? Today we're talking about Legendz, one of my favorite monster battling franchises. It revolves around a toy created by Bandai. And before we talk about that, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of virtual pets because I think that that's important. So mid-90s, obviously Pokemon came out, blew up, was insanely successful, and a lot of people claim that Digimon is a ripoff of that. Although if you look at the roots, they're quite different. So Pokemon came out, I think, a year before Digimon. Digimon came out around 1997 and was sort of the spiritual successor to Tamagotchi, sort of. It was really the equivalent of Tamagotchi, but marketed towards boys. So Tamagotchi was also wildly successful, and it wasn't really marketed towards boys. It was more like a pet raising simulator. So they created Digimon, which is very similar. You still raise pets, but the difference is they're big monsters and they fight each other. And that franchise has been going on for a long time. In recent years, it's sort of gotten a resurgence in interest. We've also had the Vital Bracelet release, and that has gotten a release in North America as well, which is great. We've got Digimon Seekers out. We had Ghost Game come out. So Digimon is doing fairly well. We've got the TCG as well, that's doing pretty well. And Bandai, during that time period in the late 90s, early 2000s, did a lot of different digital pets. So my first interaction with Digimon was the cartoon, the anime. So when I was a kid, I sucked up anything that had spiky-headed characters in it. Pokemon was probably the first, and then Digimon and Monster Rancher, and all of them hooked me. I loved the sort of theming, and Digimon was quite cool. It was quite a bit different from Pokemon. Instead of catching them all, you had like one partner Digimon, and they were stuck in this digital world, and you know, they were trying to get home. It was a very cool story. Fast forward like, I don't know, 7 years or something, I'm 15 years old at a Books A Million, and I find a manga called Legendz, just the first volume, and I don't know why I was there, but I was there. And I guess I was there by myself, because I remember just picking it up and sitting there and just reading the entire volume and being upset that there wasn't any further volumes. And anytime I went back, they never had the second volume. So fast forward again, like, I don't know, 10 years, and I'm at a used bookstore and I find the complete set of Legendz. So the 4-volume set, and it's very shonen in theming. The story's pretty good. Unfortunately, the series was cut short in Japan due to the magazine it was published in going out of business, and unfortunately the series didn't get bought by another magazine, didn't get ported to another magazine, so it just ended at the 4th volume. It was cut short. I think the writer tried his best to sort of end it off as quickly as he could, but it could have gone much longer and is unfortunate. There's also an anime, but it doesn't follow the manga and is definitely not shonen. If anything, it's more of like a gag anime.
悪くねえな。悪くないどころかブラボーだぜ、タリスダム。やるが。おう。グレード、ウォルフィー、リオ、3人揃って GW ニコル。
It does pick up later on, about halfway through the series. It gets really dark and really serious out of nowhere. The anime is really weird. If you're trying to dip into sort of any of the media of the franchise, I would suggest maybe starting with the manga and then maybe trying the anime. Because the anime, for me, it's all right, but it's definitely not my cup of tea. I definitely prefer the manga over the anime. In terms of the toys for Legendz, they created a Talus Pod, which is sort of like the equivalent of a Digivice, except that instead of having evolution trees and integrated monsters in the device, you've got these things called Soul Dolls, which have their own separate EEPROM chip, and all of the data for the Legendz is saved on that chip. So if your battery dies on the Talus Pod, you still have your little Soul Doll and your little buddy inside, and you don't lose that when the battery dies. So you can pop it out, pop it into another device, and you retain that. So the difference in raising is that it's not time-based in the same way that Digimon is, so like every 24 hours, 72 hours, whatever, you get an evolution. You're not going down different evolution trees based on care mistakes, which is like not feeding them, not putting them to sleep on time, and that diverges into different evolution trees for Digimon. With Legendz, you put them in an environment at a certain time of day, and they sort of just train in that environment. So there's a bunch of different environments inside the device itself, and basically depending on the environment that you're in, it will raise different parameters of the legend. So you've got things like attack, defense, magic, different stats for the Legendz, HP as well, and basically you're trying to max out his stats, and at the same time you can find move crystals that you can teach the Legendz, and you basically have a deck of moves that you can teach them. It's way more involved than Digimon. Not only are you traveling to these different environments with your little buddy and raising their stats, but you're also going through and collecting different move sets. After battles you can get crystals, or you can find them randomly, and you're teaching them different moves, and you can have like different combos that do different things. It's very cool. You've got healing moves, you've got counter moves, magic, attack, like physical attack. It's one of the most involved like virtual pets that I've seen. And not only do those soul dolls work with the Talus Pod, but they also released a bigger sort of, I would say better device called a Talus Dom, where you can raise 3 at one time. It has better sprite work, it has a larger screen, it has better quality of life features as well. So the main goal of the Talus Pod after you raise them is to fight the King Dragons and then Jabberwock, and that is sort of like the end goal of the game. With the Talus Dom, it's the same thing. You can fight the King Dragons and Jabberwock, but then you've also got a quest mode that you can go through to go through different stages and end up beating that as well, and you can get special crystals for that. Additionally, they also released a PlayStation 2 game. So on the Talus Pod or Talus Dom, each of your soul dolls has a unique code, and that code can be put into the PS2 game to bring your Legendz in to play with them through the PS2 game. And if that's not cool enough, they also released a Game Boy Advance game with an adapter that you can put the soul doll in to import them into the game. And if that's not cool enough, they released a second Game Boy Advance game that you can not only bring your little guy into the game and fight with them, but there's also a sprite editor for the soul doll. So you can bring in the information from your soul doll, edit the sprites, the actual sprite sheet for like the Talus Dom or Talus Pod, send it back to the soul doll, and then pop that into your Talus Pod or Talus Dom, and now you've got a custom sprite for your character. So you can make modifications to the characters, or you can completely erase them and put whatever you want into that soul doll. If you want to stick Goku in there, go for it. SpongeBob, have at it. Whatever you can draw or come up with, you can stick onto that soul doll, and then you can play on the Talus Pod or Talus Dom with that character. The stats for the characters don't change, it's just the sprite. But like, what other virtual pet or like Toys to Life franchise has something like that? That's insane. Like, imagine just creating your own custom character and you just pop it in, and that's that's so cool. Between the Game Boy Advance games, the PS2 games, the manga, the anime, and then some of the maps that are included with the toys, there's a lot of lore to unpack with Legendz. They released some guidebooks for the toys, they released guidebooks for the Game Boy Advance games. There's just a lot to unpack there, and it's not well documented. I really enjoy it. I think it's a really charming franchise. I think the characters are really interesting. There's no evolutions like there is in Digimon, so all of the characters are just that, the singular character. But there are secondary sort of variants of the characters. So let's say you have a wind dragon, there's like multiple different variants of wind dragons that are maybe a little bit stronger or look a little bit different that you can purchase and get. I want to say that Legendz, I don't know that it is the first Toys to Life, but it's definitely up there. It's gotta be one of the first. And as far as like integrating a toy into a video game in that way. I know Skylanders sort of popularized that, as well as like Disney Infinity and like the Nintendo Amiibos. That's become sort of a popular like product at this point. For them to integrate it across all of these different games and media is very cool. There was a lot of forethought that went into that. I think Bandai really went out of their way to put a lot into this. In fact, the designer for a lot of the Legendz also worked on Digimon. So there's a little bit of crossover between sort of the designs for Digimon and the designs for Legendz. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten anything for Legendz in a long time. They released a Blu-ray collection in Japan, but we haven't seen any sort of anniversary collection or anything like that, or any crossover. I know like Metabots did a crossover with the Digimon Vital Bracelet, which was very cool. And we've seen sort of Mega Man Battle Network sort of come back. They've had, you know, crossovers with apps. We we had the collection for that as well, but we haven't seen anything from Legendz. I'm not sure if it just fizzled out in Japan and Bandai just doesn't think it's worth it to try to reinvest anything into that franchise, but nevertheless, it's still very cool and one of my favorites from my childhood. In fact, recently, the community has made efforts to create what is essentially the equivalent of the Wi-Fi comm for Digimon, which if you're not sure what that is, it is a device that allows you to connect the Digimon devices through this and battle online. In fact, there's a whole Digimon fan game where you can bring your Digimon into the game and then fight other people in real time, which is very cool. The same sort of thing has been in production for Legendz as of late. There's no video game for it, but you can connect them and then battle other people with Legendz devices online, which is super, super cool because the actual deck building and the team building for Legendz is way more involved than it is for Digimon. The fact that you can pick your own moves and pick your own builds, and you can, with the Talisman, you have 3 Legendz that you can bring with you, and they have different support effects based on which element they are. So there's just a whole lot going on. Like, it's insane that they invested that much into a toy, basically. I can't think of another digital pet or virtual pet that has that much going into it in terms of the actual gameplay. I don't know, it's really cool, it's really charming. If you guys want to check it out, feel free. I think the anime is up on YouTube. The manga, unfortunately, is out of print, but you can find it fairly cheap. And then the toys you can source fairly inexpensively. They're not super cheap, but they're not so expensive that people can't still get into it. And the devices are pretty resilient. I think I've got several of them at this point, and I think the only issue that I've had with one of them is the speaker going out, which is an easy fix. But as far as the actual devices go, they seem to be pretty well built. So anyway, let me know what you think of this video, guys. Drop a comment down below, hit the like for the algorithm, and I will see you guys in the next one.